over the last several weeks, I've been spending a lot of time with data. And I think you guys have been enjoying it because the responses to the videos have been all positive. Whether we agree or not, I think we've had some wonderful and healthy discussions around several topics. Scarcity and rarity, 9.6s versus 9.8s, the 90s comic book market versus today's market, and the health of today's market. We've had some fascinating discussions, and I take that as a sign that people are enjoying the content, that they're engaging with the content, again, in a very constructive and positive way, which I think is fantastic. And so I took that as a sign that people enjoy these types of videos. So I want to spend a little bit more time talking about some additional data, specifically, again, blue chip comic books. And I want to look at how these comics have behaved and performed over time. I think there are some guys out there that have done some wonderful analyses of comics. RB3 is a guy that comes to mind that has done some fascinating breakdowns that have opened my mind to lots of different things. And I want to take a slightly different approach from what he's done. I want to go further back in time. And so with the help of Knights of Olds, a viewer of this channel, we were able to go back to 1975 and look at how some of these historical comics have behaved over time. And so what we've done, based upon the availability of his Overstreet guides, is we've looked at several different points in time and kind of examined how some of these blue chip comics have performed from 1975 all the way through 2018. And we're not going to spend a ton of time looking into all of the minute details around each and every book. Instead, we're going to look for some patterns that we see emerge as we look at these blue chips books. And as you would imagine, I, as a Marvel guy, am spending some time talking about some Marvel books. But I am a fan of history, and I am a fan of supporting people that are passionate. And there are a lot of passionate DC guys that watch this channel. So I have some books for you guys as well. So my hope is that you guys enjoy this video, and certainly you will let me know whether you enjoy it by the comments that you leave behind and by the thumbs up or thumbs down that you may give this video. As always, I want to thank you guys for taking the time to watch this video. I hope that you find this video helpful and informative. The Brave and the Bold 28 was released in March of 1960. So when we look at what's happening with The Brave and the Bold 28, you can see that there was not a whole lot of activity in the early days for this book. It was released in the 60s and it was only worth $6 according to Overstreet by 1975. 5 years later, it jumped up to $120 in 1980. By 1990, it was almost $500, again, according to Overstreet. By 2010, it had shot up to $1,600, and then fast forward to 2018, 8 years later, and the book is nearing $6,000 for a copy of The Brave and the Bold 28. X-Men #1 was released in September of 1963. So now we take a look at X-Men #1, released in 63, and it seems to have a slightly better trajectory than what we saw with The Brave and the Bold a few moments ago. By 1975, this book was worth $12, which is roughly double what Brave and the Bold was actually worth. By 1980, however, it wasn't worth as much as The Brave and the Bold, sitting at roughly $80. By the 90s, it had jumped up to $415. By 2010, the book had reached $2,500. Fast forward to 2018, and the book has shot up to $5,200. And the next question, of course, is where is this book going to go in 1920 and beyond, given what's happening with potentially the deal with Disney and Fox? Captain America #1, Golden Age, March 1941. Next up, we look at Captain America, a Golden Age book from the 40s. Definitely this book has some Golden Age pricing attached to it. While other books were double digits, this was a triple digit book at $750 in 1975, which is an incredible amount of money for 1975. By 1980, the book had jumped up to $2,000. When the comic book market was crashing in the 90s, this book was sitting at roughly $3,700. And certainly you don't see as much growth there moving from 1980 to 1990 as what you see when you go to 2000. We're looking at $14,000 in 2000, and then the book just skyrockets. When you look at what's happening in 2018, the book has reached $72,000. Showcase 4 was released in October of 1956. Next up, we take a look at Showcase #4. This book's performance is a little bit different than some of the previous books that we looked at, where they seem to have a steady trajectory upwards. This book kind of sputtered along the bottom here, below $5,000 for a significant amount of time. The book was released in 1956. You can see here that in 1975 it was only worth roughly $40. By the 80s, it had gone up to $525. By 2000, it was only, and I'm only air quotes, $3,300, still well below the 5,000 mark. Even fast forward to 2010, it's still below $5,000. Relatively flat yet stable growth with this particular book. But look at what happens as you go from 2010 to 2018. The book jumps up significantly to $26,000 in 2018. And so the question is, what does the future hold for this book? Will it kind of sputter along for the next several years, or will it continue its upward trajectory? Showcase 22, October 1959. So now let's contrast Showcase 4 to Showcase 22. While Showcase 22 has a better curve, if you will, than does Showcase 4, this book's performance isn't even close to what we saw just a few moments ago. In 1975, Showcase 22 was worth $18. By 1990, $312. By 2010, only $1,300. And 2018, this year, the book is only worth $4,400. And air quote only, right? That's still a significant amount of money, but definitely not as high a performer as Showcase #4. The Incredible Hulk #1, May of 1962. Next up, we are looking at Hulk #1, and this book seems to have performance similar to some of the other books that we've looked at. When the book was released in 1962, it had some minor performance. When you look at 1975, you can see that the book is sitting at roughly $40. By the 1980s, it had crept up to $300. By 1990, $400. Relatively smooth kind of trajectory here for Hulk #1 until you get to 2010, and the book jumps up to $4,200. And then fast forward to 2018, and a fair grade copy of Hulk #1 will run you roughly $17,000. Incredible Hulk 181, November 1974. Next up, Hulk number 181. And I struggle here with a little bit of what the data shows here from Overstreet, just given how this book is performing in other guides and pricing services. But nevertheless, in 1975, Hulk 181 basically was cover price. By 1980, it had reached $3. By 2000, the book was worth roughly $130 some odd dollars. Fast forward to 2010, still below $300. And then according to Overstreet, the book has reached a whopping $1,200 in 2018. We may have to go back and check the data on this one because this just doesn't look right. If you have a copy of Hulk 181 or you're trying to buy a copy of Hulk 181, you know that a fair grade copy is not going for $1,260. Where it all started, Fantastic Four #1, released in November of 1961. Next, we are going to look at Fantastic Four #1, and this book definitely has some upward momentum according to Overstreet. A fair grade copy of this book in 1975 would run you $90. By 1980, it was a whopping $600. By 1990, it was only $1,000, air quote. By 2010, the book had reached $6,600. And by 2018, because of all the hype around the Fantastic Four coming into the MCU, you can see that the price has reached $12,000 for a fair grade copy of Fantastic Four #1. Batman #1, Spring 1940. Golden Age Batman #1. This book has had some relatively slow progress and growth, but it's been strong, right? If you look at the curve here, it is more of a linear curve than a very sharp and precipitous upward swing, except when you get into the later years. But in 1975, this book was running $900 in 1975. 1980, $1,700. 1990, it had jumped to $6,000. After the crash of the comic book market, this book jumped to $16,000. By 2018, $150,000 for a copy, a fair grade copy of Batman #1. That's impressive. Amazing Fantasy 15, my personal grail, August 1962. Much to my chagrin, we are looking at the curve for Amazing Fantasy 15. In 1975, this book was selling for $60. 1980, $600. 1990, $1,100. Fast forward to 2010, this book had jumped to $12,000 for a fair grade copy according to Overstreet. And look, 2018, it is a whopping $32,000, again, for a fair grade copy of the first appearance of Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man. All right, so there we have it. We've looked at essentially 10 awesome comic books over time, and we've looked at their performance. And there are definitely some patterns to be seen here. There's some interesting data points and certainly some aha moments along the way. My hope is that I'll be able to do another one of these videos, maybe looking at some modern keys over time and seeing how those books perform. And maybe we can do a comparison and contrast between these classic books from the Golden Age, Silver Age, Bronze Age, and kind of compare them to some of these modern age books. Maybe there are some things that we can learn there. But definitely, I want you guys to stay tuned because there is definitely more to come.